welcome to the Gestalt IT Rundown. It's your weekly look at the IT news of the week. I'm your host, Rich Stroffolino, and joining me, he's a man, a plan, a canal. It's Tom Hollingsworth. Tom, welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me, Rich. I'm enjoying the fine rains down here in Oklahoma without Weezer.
Yeah, they fall outside of Africa, it turns out. So we're going to jump right into it. Tom, major news. Now, we're not talking on the platform known as Skype, but Microsoft announced some major updates. Basically, they're redesigning it again because their last redesign was a massive flop. In another seemingly step in the interminable redesign of Skype, they're removing the Snapchat-like highlights feature that was implemented last year, as well as removing the Skype camera in Messenger because, again, no one's using, if you're using Messenger and Skype, it's probably not on mobile. It's very complicated. Turns out if you actually focus on what people use, it's voice calls, video calls, and very occasionally messaging. The redesigned desktop app will move chats, calls, contacts, and notifications into the main upper left navigation pane, which I guess it wasn't there before, with a similar focus brought to mobile. Another interesting note here, though, in Skype not botching it, just waiting way too long to do it news, Skype is introducing call recording integrated into the application on most platforms. Users can record voice and video, notably, including any slides shared, and have it stored in the cloud for free for 30 days, and I'm sure Microsoft will let you pay to keep it there for longer than that. Turning on call recording will notify all participants, so you don't have to worry about any kind of compliance there. But interestingly, Skype for Windows 10 won't receive the update for a few weeks. You can download it on your iPhone today. Skype for Windows 10, I guess, Microsoft, it's very tough. Skype has to botch everything a little bit or a lot of it. So obviously with the call sharing and these, that's I feel like that's a natural WebEx maybe attempt at a competitor, especially if this is rolled out to Skype for Business. But Tom, is this going to turn anything? I mean, Skype right now seems like such a specialty tool when it was set to like eat the entire internet. This won't claim back any market share, right?
No, the people who are using Skype are the ones who have been using Skype forever. And the fact that they tried to emulate Snapchat tells you exactly how well that worked. And please, for the love of all that's holy, for those of you who are out there listening to this, don't make your app emulate Snapchat. Nobody cares. People are on Snapchat for a reason, and it has absolutely nothing to do with the interface. It's because it's where their parents aren't. So call recording essentially is making the podcaster's life a whole lot easier. That's basically what it is. And you're right, it is a test bed feature for Skype for Business, so that they can start charging people for it whenever it gets in there. But basically, Skype for Business is a hot dumpster fire full of train wrecks. So I don't know exactly who's going to be using it other than podcasters who don't want to pay for Skype for Business.
The story of Skype someday will be written in how they completely I mean, like Skype was set to become the Kleenex of video calling, and for whatever reason, I mean, obviously they had weird acquisitions. They were owned by eBay for a couple of years, right? So just another weird chapter in the history of Skype. Luckily, people getting some a little bit of clarity, a little bit of simplification, and actual features that people want to use. Speaking of dysfunctional products and companies, hey, there's a big shakeup at Evernote. TechCrunch reports that Evernote has lost a number of executives in the past month, including their CTO, CFO, CPO, which I believe is a droid, and their head of HR. The news comes as the company is attempting a new funding round, which is expected, to be a down round. The company has raised about $300 million to date, and they've been around since 2004, so it's quite a bit of time to raise some money. This is the second major executive shakeup since 2016, when they again lost their founding CTO at that time. The company reported being cash flow positive at the end of 2017, so that's awesome. But according to sources that TechCrunch spoke to, the company's paid and active user growth has been flat for the past 6 years, and their enterprise offering hasn't found an audience, which I'm assuming they would, hope would be a big cash cow for them. Tom, what's the over/under that Evernote gets acquired by the end of 2019?
75%. I think that this thing's run its course. The fact that I had to be reminded that Evernote was still a thing should tell you exactly how bad this is. The down round makes sense. We're going to cut everybody who makes a stupid amount of money to do nothing. And we're going to hope that the amount of money we get left will be enough to pay the developers to make these features exciting enough that somebody who's making a real notes app like Bear or some other popular note-taking app will actually do this. Will buy us. I can almost inevitably press all other decision hey, we're going to read all of your notes and we're going to use them in advertising. That was a stupid idea.
Well, and they also had their weird fascination with being a lifestyle brand at some point. You know, they were making pens and moleskin notebooks and all that kind of weird stuff. It just seemed, again, a company that had a ton of mind share. You know, they were one of the early pioneers when it came to mobile note taking. And then I feel like they never found a sweet spot for their note taking app, because I was a prime Evernote user, right? I think I still have a bunch of if scripts that, like, every time I post a picture or I update Facebook, automatically tags it, and it's this really useful feature. The problem is that, you know, they really neutered the free tier in a lot of ways. They, you know, limited the number of devices you could do. They never really realistically expanded the amount that you could upload per month, making it really onerous if you wanted to, you know, very seriously integrate it. And there was no step up tier I ever felt like. It was, you know, it was like the price of Netflix to kind of get on there. And in terms of their enterprise feature, I felt like they never knew what they wanted that to be. What is an enterprise note-taking platform, right? Is it supposed to be a Skype competitor? Is it supposed to be a Google? I'm not a Skype competitor, a Slack competitor? Is it supposed to be a Google Docs competitor, where, you know, you're doing content creation and that kind of stuff and editing? Again, it feels like an interesting product that they never could really target to the right audience to make money, and then just kind of throwing it at the enterprise and hoping that it would stick. I feel like Feedly in a lot of ways is in the same way, where they have this weird, you know, collaboration business tier that no one's asking for. I have no idea what these companies are thinking there.
Yeah, and to remind you, OneNote lives on.
Yeah, yeah, and I, you know, and being rolled into Office 365 doesn't hurt when it comes to people using you. All right. In other news, in kind of not quite hardware news, Tom, I want to tell you something called GPU Plus. It's coming from Huawei, and AnandTech published some technical details on it. It was originally released to go along with the Honor Play handset that was released in China, and they're just about to release a 2.0 implementation. Basically, this is a kind of a software layer on top of their GPU silicon that supposedly offers 60% performance improvement while reducing power consumption by 30%. Also, magical unicorn dust and fairies accompany it as well. AnandTech dug into some of the details and found that what the company is actually doing is using TensorFlow neural networks pre-trained on an application-by-application basis for each system on a chip. So basically, every little piece of silicon that's in a given handset, allowing the device to proactively adjust the hardware performance states in order to better adapt to a workflow. Basically, they're seeing how a given game or application works, and seeing, okay, hey, if we can power down the GPU because it's really GPU not intensive, send all that power to the, you know, overclock the CPU just for a little bit here where it really needs it when it's reading a database or something like that, and then going back and powering up the GPU, trying to optimize that and do it there. That really fascinating look at this. It is, like I said, it is title by title based. So the rollout is super slow. Right now, there's one handset, 2 games currently supported, although one of them is PUBG, which is like one of the most popular games in China. And AnandTech found that the percentage gains cited were pure marketing bluster, however. Basically, they were not comparing the same silicon with GPU Plus and non-GPU Plus. They were using an older generation versus the new generation with GPU Plus. But when they kind of were able to dig into it, they found that there were some modest gains, especially on the efficiency front, that still make this really fascinating. Tom, I'm wondering, you know, this is more of a consumer. Obviously, Huawei is putting this on consumer handsets, but I'm wondering if this kind of neural network by application to better use hardware is something that we're going to be seeing going forward. That to me is really fascinating.
Well, this doesn't pass the sniff test for me. Using TensorFlow pre-compiled to recognize SOCs, yeah, we've already hit a scaling limitation. You're not going to be able to program these things fast enough. Now, if you're going to try to do this over massive GPU farms that people are using for HPC, this isn't going to fly. And realistically speaking, you know why it's not going to fly? Because all NVIDIA has to do is detect that this application's running and kill it. There's a reason why there are only 2 video card manufacturers in the world right now. It's because they're really good at what they do, and everybody else has a massive amount of catch up to play. They're not going to get there anytime soon, no matter how many stupid hardware fairy dust unicorn tricks they're going to try to pull, no matter how much TensorFlow they put in there, which, by the way, TensorFlow is a great idea to reduce GPU utilization, but you know what it's going to do? Spike your CPU.
Well, the one thing that I will say is, I mean, basically, this sounds to me like, hey, we made drivers that are specifically targeted to specific games. They just happen to be, we happen to use neural networks to basically come up with a driver for this particular SoC or something like that. So yeah, to your point, this isn't all the, I mean, maybe how they got to the software update is a little bit different, but from a substantive basis, they rolled out a software update that improved performance on a specific application. NVIDIA and AMD do that all the time with all of their GPUs. I do wonder though, if, to your point, I think what they're doing might have some applications when you're looking at something like a GPU scale out situation where you want, where the idea is to make the hardware as vanilla as possible and then innovate on the software on top of that. We've seen this with a number of software defined, data center offerings, whether it's networking, storage, that kind of stuff. I think with the right implementation, I don't know if GPU Plus or Huawei is the company to do that, but the idea of using that kind of modeling, I don't know, that seemed cool to me. Admittedly, I think they just wanted to say they used AI or neural networks in their press release.
Pretty much.
All right. Speaking of a little buzzword bingo here. Hey, Tom, do you want to use some ML and you don't want to code?
Sure, why not?
Baidu has something for you. They just launched a product called EasyDL, which I believe is Easy Deep Learning, in beta, and it's a tool designed to allow users to build, design, and deploy artificial intelligence without any coding. At launch, EasyDL focuses on image classification, object detection, and sound classification. Models are trained using ridiculously small sample sizes, 50 audio clips, 100 or 100 image files, and training can take between 15 to 60 minutes. Generated models can then be accessed via API if kept in the cloud or downloaded as an SDK. So the idea is, you're a developer, you're a business, whatever, you have an application, you have a need for one of these services, sound detection, whatever, image classification, that kind of stuff. You don't have that kind of resource, but you have a bunch of images. You want to, find out when something is seen on a video camera in your store or something like that. Upload a bunch of those images. You have those. Baidu gives you an API that you can just plug into your existing code. Everything works great. You didn't have to do all that much. What's interesting though is this reminds me of Anchorman a little bit. Baidu claims that 2/3 of the generated models achieve greater than 90% accuracy. So 2/3 of the time it works. 90% of the time. That's like not the most ringing endorsement. Now, I'm sure what Baidu will tell you is, okay, yeah, the vast majority of that 1/3 where the accuracy is less than 90%, people really didn't do a good job of, going through the source material and that kind of stuff. I have to think, though, usually the whole thing about machine learning and AI is that they require massive ingest of data to do that. Now, maybe Baidu is using, some shared libraries on the back end. So if you upload 50 pictures of cats, they already have 1 billion pictures of cats sitting there. They've already trained this on, and they're just saying, "Oh, okay, the guy's doing cats. Okay, let's use his pictures for that to that effect." Still interesting, and I'm wondering if we're going to see other companies, maybe down the road, some of the other public cloud providers, maybe in the U.S. Focused markets, offering something similar as well, or if these kinds of applications will become mainstream enough that we won't need these kind of dummy services.
I can guarantee you we're going to see ML as a service before you know it. And the reason for that is because just what you said, they can grow a giant ML library without needing to worry about paying for data. Their customers will provide it for them. So now they have 1,050,000,050 cat pictures, and they can train on all of those things.
Yeah, I would be interested to see their privacy policy if you're getting a discrete instances, or if this is just all massively shared to kind of build up their own AI assets internally. That's actually really good. I didn't think of it the other side, Tom. So thank you for that. And Tom, kind of getting to our last news coverage. Getting to our last news coverage here. According to the Wall Street Journal, the majority of the top 25 U.S. cities, so at least 13 cities, either have purchased or exploring purchasing ransomware insurance. Houston, Dallas, San Diego, Denver, and Detroit have all purchased policies, and several other cities are not disclosing whether they have. Other cities are doing self-insurance policies, basically setting aside a pool of money in case there is a ransomware attack. Those cities listed are actually using an insurance policy for that. The policies would cover extortion demands, legal liabilities, computer forensic expertise, and costs to cover the loss of government services. This comes after a ransomware attack in Atlanta knocked out city services, and cities are reporting an uptick in attacks. The Wall Street Journal article said that LA receives an average of 45 million unauthorized access attempts daily that are dealt with by firewalls and other kind of automated means, where human analysts are kind of called in to neutralize 2,000 attacks on average per week. Tom, this is really interesting to me. We've heard on the Gestalt IT side, we've heard a lot of different ransomware solutions. It's always fascinating to me kind of what camp that kind of falls in. Is this a networking issue? Is this a DR issue? Is this, where does this fall in terms of whose responsibility this is? But is this just kind of a realization that, municipal IT is never going to be nimble enough to deal with these threats? So we might as well just assume this is going to happen and have a way to pay up and just kind of deal with the outages?
Yeah, municipal governments never operate on healthy budgets anyway. They're always kind of floating from one month to the next, kind of figuring out what they're going to be doing. But you want to paralyze a city real quick, don't pay the garbage men for a couple of weeks and see what happens. I promise you're not going to. And plus, that's kind of like if you paralyze a hospital with a malware attack, they're going to pay. You know why? Because the PR for not paying is worse. So, all it takes is a couple of well-placed strikes. And let's face it, unlike hospitals, municipal governments are probably still running off of Windows XP. So what can you do? And the answer is you pay. And that's why they don't ask for a lot, because they just have to hit a few municipalities and get a little bit of money in Bitcoin. And, I'm sure you're probably going to start seeing them ask for more money now that Bitcoin's in the toilet. But the fact is that the municipalities, they basically have said, forget it, we're just going to give in because it's the only thing we can do.
Well, and these aren't the cheapest policies. I mean, I was seeing a premium of, over $1 million in a lot of these to cover up to 50 million in coverage. I mean, at some point is the problem here that, when we say, cities are doing this, the problem is that there's no city IT department. There's 50 different, waste disposal, energy, city, literally like the physical government buildings within a city each kind of have their own little IT fiefdoms, and you can knock out any one of those and it has all sorts of, cascade of effects. To say nothing of things like SCADA systems that are in power plants and all over the place that would probably be covered, vaguely under this as well if those were government operated or municipally operated and that kind of stuff. My only hope is that, we're based out in Hudson, Ohio, that the city of Cleveland doesn't pay for this and someone knocks out the Browns stadium so I don't have to watch some terrible, terrible football this year. Tom, before we get out of here, you were at VMworld last week. We were doing a Tech Field Day Extra event. You can head over to techfieldday.com to check out some videos of that. We talked about some of the announcements, some of the cool projects that we got some details on. But I was just wondering, what was your big takeaway from the show this year? Any big announcement that caught your eye?
Yeah, that's funny. There weren't really a whole lot of huge announcements. It was more continuations of things from Dell Technologies World and even from VMworld last year. And it all revolves around AWS and Azure for a smaller degree. VMware is basically trying to operationalize everything. Hey, we work well with Azure. We work well with AWS. No word on Oracle Cloud yet. Sorry, Larry. But I mean,
I thought I heard something. It was something with the RDS announcement that there was some kind of Oracle hook there that maybe we missed.
Potentially, who knows? That's how big the news was. But it all comes down to operations. I mean, when you look at the fact that they bought a big operations suite from Dell EMC and brought it in house, I mean, that kind of tells you that VMware realizes that the days of, oh look, vMotion is cool, is over. People have, that ship has sailed into the night. What they want is stuff to work. They want to be able to move things to clouds. They want to be able to move it across clouds. They want workload mobility and not vMotion. They're thinking at an application level. And that probably is the biggest takeaway that I've had. People aren't thinking about the bits and bolts anymore of how this stuff works. They're actually thinking about an application as a contained unit, not just the VMs that run it. And so because of that, VMware's having to change their thinking. It's no longer about the hypervisor. It's no longer about NSX. It's about all of that together as a package to deliver an experience to you, who then delivers it to the end users.
All right, Tom, I need on the hype scale of big deal, not big deal, kind of the thing I heard the most buzz about, aside from the RDS thing, was ESXi on ARM. Big deal? No big deal.
No big deal. Honestly, this is a specialized use case that a lot of people are not going to be all that excited about. Chances are that if you've made an investment, that big of an investment in ARM servers, you've already got a hypervisor solution. This is VMware trying to make sure that they've got all their bases covered for those edge use cases. Nobody's getting off of Intel and AMD anytime soon.
Well, that's the definitive word from Tom Hollingsworth. And I think that'll be the definitive word from the Gestalt IT Rundown for this week. Tom, thank you so much for all of your valiant service, whether at VMworld or in the extended Gestalt IT offices out in Oklahoma. Always appreciated. Like I said, you can find more of our coverage from VMworld both on gestaltit.com and the Tech Field Day extra presentations at techfieldday.com. We have tons of video up there from companies like Dell EMC, Blue Medora, Barefoot Networks. Kind of went deep into some of their analytics that they're able to do on their Tofino platform. I particularly enjoyed getting some details on that. So check that out. All those videos are on YouTube and at techfieldday.com. You can find more of my stuff on gestaltit.com or on Twitter at Mr. Anthropology. Tom, you're at Networking Nerd, I'm told, on the tweets. Did you freeze up, Tom?
Yes, I am.
Okay.
I am at Networking Nerd on Twitter, and networkingnerd.net is my blog, and check out some of the stuff I've been writing at gestaltit.com also.
Excellent. So we'll be back next Wednesday, 12:30 p.m. Eastern Time with more of your IT news of the week. But until then, remember, everybody, have a super sparkly day.